So I am Chacha and I work in early childhood, and I made a video about what is consent, why to use consent, and kind of a general how-to. Um, and I made a video on how to use consent in changing diapers. And this video is about how to use consent when touching a child to express love or support. And it can be really hard to resist. Like sometimes you just want to give a child a hug. Sometimes I just want to give a child a hug, and it can be hard for me to resist. But when I remember that children are people with feelings, it's a lot easier for me to remember to use consent. And children can feel violated, and they can be easily manipulated because of their size. And it's really important to make sure that the choice to be kissed or hugged is theirs, that they are controlling their body. So for nonverbal children, this looks different than for verbal children. Remember that touch is important to children's growth. It's important to touch children. Don't be too shy to touch a child because you've heard of consent culture and you don't have it down yet. Just learn. Just learn more. So you can talk them through what you're doing. You can say, I love you so much, I'm gonna kiss your cheek. You can use eye contact when possible. And remember to respect their body language. So consent can look like moving into so if you're kissing, then the child moves in, or if you're giving a hug, they kind of pull in or hug back. But smiling and laughing, including smiling in the eyes, is also a form of consent. So if a child can't talk, what does lack of consent look like? It could be pulling away or turning their face away. It could be pushing you away. It could be holding their muscles really tight. It can also be crying. And the more you know a child, the more you'll learn what their form of lack of consent is. And if you get the sense that a child is unhappy, take responsibility. Make an observation, such as, I noticed you didn't hug back, which tells me you didn't like that. After you make an observation, apologize. I'm sorry. I only want to hug you if you want to hug me too. And then you can make a commitment, such as, now I know that when you smile, it doesn't necessarily mean you want a hug. I'll try to make sure to only hug you when you initiate it. And for various children, you can keep your language simpler to ensure that the child understands. Or you can use more complex language to promote advanced language skills. And your intentions and tone of voice are more likely to do the majority of the communication than the words are. But make sure to use some words so that the child knows that words are part of consent culture. If a child is verbal, to get consent for touching them to show love or support, just ask. You can say, can I pick you up? I want a hug right now. Do you want to hug me? Or would you like a hug? Do you want me to pick you up? There's different ways to frame consent where you talk about what you want and ask if they want to fulfill that for you, or you ask what they want. Those are kind of two different ways to work on consent. And while we're talking about verbal children, it's still important to respect nonverbal answers. Children are still developing their language and their interpersonal skills, and it's really important to understand that maybe a child will just walk away when their answer is no, and that's okay. That's their way of communicating, and you could respond to this by saying something like, I understood your response is no. So that can look like, when you turn your body away from me, it tells me that you don't want a hug, so I'm not going to give you one. And that way they understand that when you offered the hug, you did want the hug, but then you changed your mind because you're respecting them. And it's also really important to thank children for taking care of their own needs. So if you ask a child for a hug and they say no, you can say, I appreciate your honesty. Thanks for taking care of yourself. And if a child has given you non-consent, if they have said no, and they're still engaging, you can ask if they'd like to do something else. So, that can look anywhere from anything from, would you like a hug instead of a kiss, or would you like to play blocks? And it's really important that it doesn't have to be instead. It can be instead, but it doesn't have to be instead. If a child doesn't want to do something with you, that's also okay, and that's also their choice. Thank you for watching this video on using consent with verbal children to touch for love or support. Check my next video. It'll be on touching for relaxation.